Welcome everybody, my name is Fabrizio Aiello. Welcome to What is Fabrizio Drinking? I mean inking. I am drinking things as well. So today I'm going to be inking this. It's a pinup of Horace H.H.Hoover, Max and Slurp, and sort of a weird shaman guy in the back. This is based on a comic book character I currently have through Alterna Comics. Go to alternacomics.com, check it out. Horace H.H.Hoover, it's a 5-issue limited miniseries. And issues 1 and 2 are already out. Any comments, questions, throw them in the chat. So I got some basic structure done the last time, and I'm gonna be taking my time with this. So after I rough out, I don't want to say rough out, but just get some lines of the structure of the characters and the placement. Once I feel confident that those are gonna work, then I like to kind of step back a little bit and take my time. Now this is blue line, and I did the pencils, so I can follow the blue line 100% accurately, but generally, you know, if you're the one penciling, it'll have a lot more energy. It'll just look better if you kind of play with it a little bit. And maybe that's just me. If I had super accurate, really precise pencils, it might be different, but if the pencils aren't quite so accurate, responding to strokes that you put down is better than being sort of slavish to the ones that you have in the blue line. Because as you go through the drawing, there's some strokes that you're going to like and some that you aren't. And again, responding to those and having the freedom to respond to those is just going to make for a better drawing overall. Some people will spot blacks early on. I don't do, that's not the first thing that I do. Like I said, I get the structure down a little more before I spot blacks. I don't know if anybody else really does that. I feel like I need the breathing room before I commit to like a large area of black. Unless it's a place that you absolutely know that that's gonna be solid black. Like, I would say under his collar, for example, that's gonna be black. I know that. There's really nothing that's gonna change that. So spotting that black which is just, I always thought it was a strange term, spotting blacks. It's just putting solid blacks. But the idea of spotting is always strange to me. Somebody might know the origin of that, and if it actually makes sense, or if it's just one of those weird terms that make their way through an industry without people stopping and saying, what the heck does that mean? Like a short order cook or something? I was just thinking about something that Richard Friend had mentioned to me a while back. I took lessons from him. Really highly recommend it. He has a Patreon, so check that out. But he was talking about inking, and he said that every line you put down should be interesting. I remember the first time hearing that was really daunting. You know, the idea that every single line on the page has to have its own sort of interest. But it's 100% true. You know, especially with a brush, you have the flexibility to really give each line a slightly different character. You know, with a micron, you really don't. But with a brush, you can go thick, thin, thin, thick. You can kind of go in and out. So I'm not saying I can always adhere to that, but it's definitely a great place to start. If you can achieve that, you're halfway there. So Slurp is like a Nosferatu type character. In the comic book, in issues 1 and 2, he helps out Horace in certain ways, but we don't understand what he says. So the language that he uses, you won't be able to read unless you find the font that was used and translate it. Somebody has done that. Only one person that I know of so far. But as time goes on, we'll kind of see how Slurp, like what his use is or what his role is in the group, as opposed to just sort of following around, speaking in an alien language. You don't want to focus too much on one area, but again, you want to hit some areas that you think might be a problem or potentially could be a problem. For me, I like to play around in those areas a little bit until I feel comfortable that when I come back to them, I have a plan and it's not going to be a struggle. Kind of like the idea of doing the hard stuff first. That way you leave the fun stuff towards the end. And usually fun stuff is repetition, or very more like the technical things that you're less like mentally engaged with. If you're going to spend an hour hatching, I don't want to say it's mindless, but if you've been doing this for a while, and I've been doing pen and ink for quite some time, it does become muscle memory, and once you figure out where you want to do something, it's just about execution at that point. So Slurp here has these like kind of wraps around his robe. I guess I was trying to figure out kind of where that came from. There's a bunch of character designs that I like that use that, but it's almost like a Japanese kind of thing. And plus, I'm very motivated by color, and Horace is red and blue, and Slurp is yellow and green. So I wanted an area of like real dark black to sort of weight the character. So these bands have a lot of black to them, like they're like a shiny leather maybe or something. So this isn't actually for a cover just yet. This is essentially concept art. I've been grouping any artwork that isn't specific as concept art. And it is how I think of it. Basically, I sit down and I just start kind of playing with characters and settings and kind of see what happens. So this is sort of very much in that vein. And depending on the outcome of this, it might be a cover, it could be, new characters, but we'll see if it's a success. And it's a success if the character design is interesting and it evokes something else. If I start thinking of a story just by looking at a new character or a scene, then that's a success. Anything that can jumpstart the storytelling process. Alright, so Slurp, he's moving along. I got his hands pretty far, so I'm going to jump around a bit. So this sort of shaman-like character with pretty crazy hair. I definitely want to get a language for the hair down. I haven't done this sort of hair. I'm thinking dreads or braids, just kind of crazy. Somebody that's been living in the wilderness or in a swamp for their entire lives, maybe even. So something like this, I could have looked up reference for dreadlocks, but I'd like to kind of leave the concept art real loose and just that initial gut reaction. And then if I need to go in, if this turns into something and really figure out what this character looks like, then I'll go in and I'll do research at that point. But up until then, it's just fun to be able to just jump right into a drawing and not worry too much about that kind of stuff until you need to. And plus, what it does is, some comic books are cartooning, and I know people always talk about this, but it's something you have to keep reminding yourself that you're not doing a photo real representation of this stuff. You can have realistic looking things, sure, but the cartooning aspect of it brings another quality to it. So if you can jump in, kind of do your maybe exaggerated or like gut reaction to something first, you might find something that you would have never found if you had started with photo reference. And then maybe it's a combination of the two at that point. You pick out the stuff that worked, you leave the stuff that didn't, you get some photo reference, and then you move on. So Halloween just ended, and we got our first snow last night, which is pretty exciting. Most people get upset at that, but I love the changing of the seasons. Even though Halloween, without a doubt, is one of my favorite times of year. Before the stream ends, I will show something, Frankenstein model that I have made, and that is actually going to be for sale on Etsy. So that's how much I love Halloween. So this is Max, and Max is his sort of, call him the straight man, kind of a no-nonsense New Yorker. Short, he's very short, sort of stocky, but pretty powerful as far as like his arms. They're like literally monkey arms. So even for an older guy, he's got these really big forearms, like Popeye style. So again, I'm going to come back up here just because I feel like I want to get more of him done before moving along. I mean, this is a new character, so this is definitely the first time I've ever drawn him. You know, I've drawn Horace, Max, and Slurp countless times before. So there's a lot to sort of discover during the art process with this character. Not that Horace, Max, and Slurp are boring to draw, but again, there's fun things to explore with a new character. Sometimes what I'll do is, going back to the spotting blacks, I'm often reticent to go direct, like solid black immediately, even if, I mean, again, there's caveats to this, but when I start to spot blacks, I'll usually do hatching first. So like under his nose here, that could have been solid black, but I went with the gray. I'll work on other things. If it does need to go black, then I can just cover it in. So it's a way to sort of hedge your bets. Hey Metatron's Cube, how's it going? Thank you very much. I think I finally got the new stream set up, so. So his face, I plan on really rendering a lot. Sometimes I'll go sort of high contrast and leave lots of white and just in the blacks sort of show form. But the plan for him, again, is to actually do quite a bit of rendering in the face. So we'll see how that works out. I actually did my first piece of, I think it's officially my first piece of Marvel, I should say DC fan art last night. It's not something I do. I haven't done it in, I don't know, decades at this point. Just because I never felt comfortable doing it. I always went directly to horror instead, but I did a drawing of Hawkman, which I think I will be inking on a stream maybe this weekend. So, sort of my hair exploration seems to work. I definitely like this approach that I've been using here, which is just really big, thick, chunky textures, maybe interspersed with pieces of hair coming through. I don't know if I've ever done this sort of montage kind of shot for Horace H.H.Hoover. I don't think I have. This is very kind of Mignola Horace-esque for sure. I mean, he's not the only one that does kind of team shot, but... So when it comes to Horace, so there's going to be a lot of black and a lot of rendering on this guy over here. So I want to make sure that Horace kind of pops forward, which means I don't want to do a bunch of rendering. I want to try to keep the blacks black and the whites white, but we'll see how that works. Went over a little bit there. Hey Blake, how's it going? Thanks for popping in, I appreciate it. I'm going through some old comic books. Actually, I should... That's basically all I do, is go through old comic books. I'm never going through new comic books. And it's funny because, you know, whenever you were reading them, and I assume that other people... This is how other people approached it too. Is like when you're young, you're a kid, you're less like aware of who wrote and drew things. Like when you hit a certain age, you are for sure, because then you know who to follow. But before that, it's a comic book. It's Marvel. Going good. Mari and I are just watching old episodes of the X-Files. Oh man, I recently started to watch some old stuff. I mean, I was obsessed with that show. Obsessed with it when it came out originally. It still holds up. I mean, I haven't gotten too far, but the one thing I kind of forgot about is the gross factor of those first few episodes. They definitely leaned heavily on the gross side, but it's classic stuff. Oh, yeah, so I was going through some old comic books, and there's some issues that I could have swore were drawn by one person that weren't. Yeah, I guess I didn't pay as much attention to that back in the day, but in my head I could have swore they were drawn by different people, and one person that really sticks out is Ron Frenz. I was going back and looking at some of my favorite comics, and like, man, I mean, I've always loved Ron Frenz, but there's a lot that I didn't realize he drew that I really loved. He was like this great... He was like a combination of Kirby and Buscema, and it was just... Man, I loved his stuff. It definitely primed me for the Kirby stuff later on, I think. Or number 5, Jersey Devil, yeah. It's funny because, I mean, that's what I do whenever I'm drawing, is I'll grab an old episode of something or an old series. And X-Files is just perfect for that. I think X-Files, now that I think about it, it's probably the first TV show that I really watched or paid attention to. I can't think of one before that, actually. I mean, before the X-Files, there wasn't, TV was kind of old school TV. Outside of sitcoms and like cop shows like, I can't think of the one. Hill Street Blues and those kind of things. So I don't want his hair to be too perfect. So I'm throwing some like squiggles, because if not, I don't know if this will look like hair as much as it will like ropes on his head. A while ago, I began to notice Perez did a lot of my favorite Marvel issues. A run of FF in the mid-70s. Really? Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, it's funny how that works out. It's cool too. I mean, I just have a lot more respect. I was looking at Al Milgram's Spectacular Spider-Man, which I was a huge fan of back in the day. And in my head, I'm like, it felt like Sal Buscema did like every Spectacular Spider-Man issue. But yeah, if you go back, you get some great issues in there. I was thinking about Sal, and I feel like if he wasn't John's brother, like he would have been bigger. Although his later stuff definitely had was more stylistic. But his Thor stuff, there's definitely some scenes, some characters that you could mistake for John Buscema. So, I mentioned this before, under his nose, I didn't go solid black, but I'm thinking it should go solid black because this value gray, I have it in multiple places. So my guess is by the time I get done with this, I'm really going to want to differentiate that area, so that'll most likely go solid black. Fun because whenever I started this drawing and then I didn't abandon it, but I set it down and then I picked it up and finished it just a little bit ago. It's pretty amazing how much you notice that you've progressed or changed in your style in not too long of a time period too. So Max, he's a little more stiff than I would do normally. So I'm trying with the inking to kind of give his vest some more organic folds and creases. We'll do some more rendering on the face. With Horace's helmet, it's one of those deals where you want to be organic and loose just to give it a little bit of energy, but I mean it's a machined piece of metal. So if you go too far, it's just gonna look like you messed up the drawing. Whereas with clothing, I mean you can really push it pretty far and it'll still read. But man, if we're talking a helmet or a space suit or some sort of, I don't know, a car or something, there's only so far you can take it before it looks pretty like it looks like a bad drawing instead of an energetic one. Do a little more on Max. Yeah, I was going to essentially pull out some old comics, some of my favorites, and kind of, I don't know, dissect them. See how Gil Kane draws knees, and John Buscema draws hands, and Sal Buscema draws hands. Metatron's Cube, it's fun looking at the old stuff. Yeah, it really is. And again, it's not to just dismiss everything that's going on right now. I mean, if you go on, you know, I don't know, some portfolio website or something, there's incredible artists out there doing stuff. It's just, I think that comics in the 70s and the 80s had such a distinct style that was really of its time, and I mean, I don't think we'll ever go back. Not that I necessarily want to go back, but again, I'm constantly mining for pulling the things that I think work, leaving the things that I don't think worked, and then just telling new stories with new characters, and that way it doesn't feel like you're just rehashing something. I'm not doing my version of, I don't know, insert superhero. You know, my version of Spider-Man. I understand how that's enticing. But that's less interesting to me. maybe that's just because I haven't come up with sort of a traditional superhero story. I have 2 stories in mind that I really want to do after or during Horace H. Hoover, and one is like it's a dark fantasy, horror, we'll say, and then the other is kind of like a dystopian future type thing, which will have superheroes, maybe that look a little different. So, I don't know, maybe if one day I wake up and I have a story that would be great with sort of a traditional costume superhero, I will sound like a hypocrite. But that hasn't happened yet. This dude only has half his head done. I gotta give him something on the other side. Kind of have the hair coming to a point down his forehead, which kind of looks like devil locks, a la the Misfits and Danzig and stuff, which is a complete accident. Not that he looks like he's in the Misfits, but something I try to be aware of is if I have too many lines that are either going the same direction, the same size, have the same flow, just try to throw something that goes right against the grain in sometimes, just to break it up. Something you have to be really aware of. It's not a tangent, it's just the flow looks too unnatural. I've always been kind of obsessed with like the voodoo stuff. There's an old movie, I haven't watched it since I was fairly young, called Serpent in the Rainbow. I remember that really freaking me out. I've been meaning to rewatch it, see if it holds up. But I remember creepy voodoo stuff. And then you have Angel Heart. Wait, is there voodoo stuff in Angel Heart? Yeah. I've always been a big fan. I think it's because the imagery just seemed a little more, I don't know, grounded than sort of your typical like Satanist kind of guy. You know, if you look at The Ninth Gate or Eyes Wide Shut, any sort of typical cult wearing robes, they can look a little goofy, depending. So the voodoo stuff just, I don't know, looked like it was sort of more grounded, and obviously it is, in Catholicism and all sorts of stuff. This dude has a giant forehead, but I actually really like that. It makes him look a little... he still looks human, but... let's just say not the best genes. He didn't come from a mother and father that were Rhodes Scholars. It doesn't appear, at least. Yeah, so this is a good example of, as I'm kind of playing around with the character, I'm like, well, he needs something else on his face. Do I do makeup? What do I do? I just like the idea of these little dots, like scarification on his face, just to kind of give him a little something. So I'll do that in a few areas. So it looks like we're getting pretty close to an hour. I'll bail at an hour. It's always a good time. Brush starts getting sticky and I start searching for things and potentially overworking things. Hey Ben, how's it going? This is looking great for Butio cover. Now it's just some concept art. I mean, it looks like a cover for sure, but it's not for anything in specific right now. Maybe if I like it at the end, and I come up with a story. I have an idea, so as of right now it's not a cover, but definitely could be. Even if it's for a short story or something. Sometimes I'm a little reticent to show this concept work just because it's, it's not final, it's not finished. It's sometimes I handle the artwork a little different. but it's fun, so I figured I'd show it. Even if it doesn't make it into anything, and even if it doesn't 100% look like my regular style. Yeah. Looks like it would make a good poster or shirt design. Yeah, shirt would be cool. And poster too. Yeah, that would be kind of fun. The technical definition of what I'm doing right now is noodling. I am just noodling at this point. Noodling is what you do whenever you feel like you made a few mistakes and you don't know if you should move forward. So you're just killing time. Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a few things that I'm unsure of on this now. We'll have to see how it goes though. Still gonna finish it. That is rule number 1. Well, rule number 1 is don't get hit by a bus if you can absolutely avoid it. But barring that, finish your drawings or games or songs or stories or whatever it is. Always finish. I recently picked up a computer game that I had started years ago. I'm a programmer by trade, so I was doing a game on my own on the side just for fun. And I kind of abandoned it, but I always wanted to finish it. So I'm like, you know what? Even if it's not great, just finish it, see what happens. Alrighty, you know what, before I go though, I will show something. So I pulled these out of storage. Actually, let me show the drawing first. So here we go. We have weird voodoo warlock man. We have Horace, Slurp, and Max. Definitely making progress. Probably finish this the next go round. Probably. Yeah, so I pulled this out of storage. Before COVID, I was selling resin models. So this is something that I had sculpted and then I 3D printed it, and then I did a mold and cast of it. So this is my Frankenstein like wall hanging head. So it's got like a bronze powder with a wax. It's like a hard resin wax. And I do have them with patina, but I'll be selling these on Etsy just for the fun of them. I have like 20 or 30 of these. So yeah, if that intrigues you, keep an eye out for Etsy. Alrighty. Oh, thanks, Minitron's Cube. Yeah, they're really fun. I'll probably post photos of them. Again, there's like a green patina painted one, which is kind of fun. But these turned out really, really fun. Especially since I did the entire process. It was nice to like go from sketch to final finished wall hanging thing. But yeah, I'll post a link on Etsy one of these days, maybe next coming week or so. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. Everybody in chat, thank you. And I will talk to you later. Have a good evening. Bye.